And that was a week after my granddaughter went missing.
I understand. And the reason I've
and
made
that
this,
was one of the that was like 3 days after Kaylee went missing, and you know what? That was just a misstatement.
Okay, so, and that's fine. We're clarifying that statement there that this is somebody whose name you had heard.
Probably no sleep for, you know.
That statement, just to be clear on the record, that this is somebody whose name has been in normal conversation around your house for 3 years prior to Kaylee's birth. That's inaccurate.
That's inaccurate.
Right.
From about 2006, to clarify
that. Okay, so
that.
you're sitting here, as we say here today, and again, this is in a different circumstance than that. Are you saying that Zanny's identity was conversed around your house from when until when?
Zanny's name came up back around when Jesse and Casey were engaged, and that was in 2006.
All right, so in 2006, you first heard the name Zanny. Did you ever hear Jesse talk about Zanny?
Yes.
Jesse Grun talked about
yes.
Zanny. Okay, what did Jesse Grun say as far as
I can't remember. I just know the name came up while he was...
When I say talk about Zanny, I want to be a little bit more clear about that. Did Jesse Grund ever tell you that he had met or seen Zanny?
No.
Okay. So where the name came up, it may have been in conversation, as you said, but it wasn't like, I just came from Zanny, and Zanny was watching Kaylee. Is that right?
All right? Correct.
Let me expand that question out a little bit. Is there any other person besides your daughter that has told you that they have met or seen Zanny?
No, but Kaylee talked about Zanny's dog.
Okay, we'll get to that in a second.
She's another person.
And I appreciate it.
Okay, well, if there's a dog that belongs to Zanny, then there must be a Zanny.
Fair enough. So,
okay.
Besides your daughter and Kaylee saying that about the dog, okay, is there any other adult that has said to you, I have met Zanny or I know who she is?
Not that I'm aware of.
Okay.
It's not relevant. It's just not relevant.
So, and I'm just going to hit this briefly on that point. You say Kaylee talked about the dog. Just describe for me what time period we're talking about that was.
Probably sometime between March and May of 2008.
March and May.
May have been even before that.
Anything else besides the statement about the dog?
She talked about her dog.
Okay. So
Kaylee loved dogs.
Right, so I assume that there's a statement about the dog, and that would be the extent of it. Mm-hmm. So sort of backing up then, as far as whether Zanny was somebody that any adult saw, you don't have any knowledge that this Zanny person who was watching Kaylee was seen by any adult. Is that correct?
I wouldn't know if anybody saw her.
That's kind of what I'm getting at.
Yeah.
You wouldn't know because...
Well, how would I know if you saw somebody? I wouldn't know if she saw me. I'm not in someone else's head, so I have no idea if anybody saw it. That's kind of a question I couldn't answer.
Okay. Did anybody say to you, hey, I met Zanny, she's a nice girl?
No, I never. Zanny never came up in conversation with anybody other than Casey, typically.
All right, so we're saying here on Greta Van Susteren, and we got the dates wrong, but you're saying a normal conversation around your house. That normal conversation you're talking about is from Casey and you. Is that right?
Right, or my husband, George.
And it's your understanding that he had never seen Zanny either. Is that right?
Correct.
Okay. And once again, as far as the phone number and how to get a hold of her or address, that would have been all information that had been given to you by Casey, and you say you've turned all that over.
Right. Casey would give me a new phone number for Zanny probably every 3 months because she said the girl changed her phone number, almost like she changed her address.
Did Casey tell you that she was paying Zanny?
I never asked her.
Okay. What was your understanding of whether Zanny was doing it for free or whether she was getting compensated?
My understanding was that Jeffrey Hopkins was paying Zanny, who was his ex-girlfriend, to watch his little boy Zachary when Casey first met Zanny. And Jeffrey was compensating for both children.
Okay.
And then later on...
Let me stop you there, and we'll get to that in just a sec. Now, is it
I'm
your
understanding...
understanding... You are, ma'am, and I appreciate that. Your understanding is that Jeffrey Hopkins was the ex-boyfriend of Zanny?
Yes.
Okay, and how did you gain that understanding or that knowledge?
Because that's what Casey told me. When she first met Jeff, she was working for... I believe she was still working for Color Vision or Kodak, one of them, I don't know when they changed hands. And Jeffrey was a IT tech at Universal.
Okay.
And that's when I saw his picture and Zachary's picture.
All right, now, where is Jeffrey Hopkins today?
I have no idea.
All right. Now, the information that Zanny was the ex-girlfriend or girlfriend of Jeffrey Hopkins came to you by Jeffrey Hopkins?
No, I never met him.
Okay. How did you get that information?
From Casey.
All right. Yeah, I'll finish the question and we'll get it. You know what I'm asking. I appreciate it. The information about Jeffrey Hopkins being the boyfriend of Zanny.
Let's go.
He just asked me a question, how I got it, so I answered it.
And I'll re-ask it. I appreciate that.
I guess raise your hand when you're finished, and then I'll go ahead and know that you're done.
I think you'll know when I'm finished, ma'am. Jeffrey
I thought
Hopkins.
I did, obviously. I was wrong.
Jeffrey Hopkins and this relationship between him and Zanny, and this being the boyfriend, and also the part about him compensating Zanny, that information came from Casey.
Yes, it did.
Okay. You've never spoken to Jeffrey Hopkins about this relationship between Zanny and him?
No.
Have you ever spoken to Jeffrey Hopkins?
No, I haven't.
So the only information that you have, and if there's more, tell me, the only information you have about Jeffrey Hopkins having a girlfriend named Zanny who was watching the kids came from your daughter, Casey.
Correct.
And there's no other source out there.
Correct.
All right. So it's your understanding, based upon what Casey told you, that Jeffrey Hopkins was paying for Zanny to watch both children. How long a time period was that, and how did you learn that? Is that from Casey?
From Casey. I think that was until December of 2007.
How about after December 2007? Obviously, you had an understanding that she was being paid by Jeffrey Hopkins. Did you come to an understanding as to who now was paying Zanny after Jeffrey Hopkins was no longer paying her?
I didn't ask. It wasn't an issue.
Well, did you have an assumption in your head that Zanny is somebody who charges for her services?
Again, it never came up.
Okay. A little different question, though. Did you have an assumption in your head that Zanny was somebody who charges for child care?
By that time, Casey and Zanny had been friends, so a lot of Casey's friends volunteered to watch Kaylee. Kaylee was a delightful young child that everybody liked to watch. So you asked me a question, let me finish it. What I'm telling you is it never came up, and I didn't think about it.
Okay. And
I'm answering your question.
Just so I'm clear, you had an understanding in your mind that at one point in time, Zanny was being compensated by Jeffrey Hopkins. Is that correct?
That's correct.
And that, as you said, ended around the end of 2007. Is that correct?
From my understanding.
All right. And after that, do you have an understanding in your mind as to who, if anybody, was compensating Zanny for her child care services?
No, because I never spoke to Casey with that. Okay. So again, Casey told me that she was being compensated by Jeffrey. When Jeffrey moved, I didn't ask who was compensating Zanny, so I have no understanding. I do not know. Again, Zanny was a friend of Casey, so she could very well have volunteered.
Well,
that did not come up.
Did Casey say to you that Zanny, my friend, is volunteering to watch my daughter?
The subject did not come up.
So when you're saying it could have happened, that's not something you know either.
I can't speculate.
Ma'am, I appreciate that. Let me finish my question, if you don't mind. When you're saying it could have happened, that isn't something you know by a fact that you've learned from anybody. Is that right?
No.
So, as far as whether she was volunteering the Zanny person or whether she was being compensated from 2007 on, you really don't know.
No, and I don't know if Casey ever paid Lauren or anybody else either, because I never asked them.
I appreciate that.
Again, that didn't come up. So I never interviewed any of her babysitters to find out if they were getting paid or not. It wasn't my position to do that.
I understand, ma'am. That wasn't really my question, though.
I'm trying to clarify the question when you asked me specifically about Zanny. So I'm clarifying it wasn't just Zanny that I didn't have that knowledge of. I didn't have the knowledge for any of them. She asked several people to watch. I don't know if they paid or not. I assume they didn't get paid. But again, and Casey was working then, so it's irrelevant to see Zenaida Gonzalez. I'm sorry.
All right. You said two things, but let me just go on back. During this time period, you have no specific knowledge if Zanny was doing it for free or whether she was being paid. Is that correct?
Mr. Dill, she's answered that question over and over again.
You can make your objection. You know you can make your objection. I just want to clarify. You have no specific knowledge that Zanny was doing it for free or being paid from 2007 on. Is that correct?
As I stated, I have no particular knowledge.
Okay. Now,